Imagine yourself transported to the beating heart of Renaissance Rome. The year is 1502. Inside the marble corridors of the Vatican, the air is heavy, laced with roasted peacock, spiced wine, and something sharper still, the metallic tang of power. A grand wedding unfolds, one that will reshape alliances across Italy. The bride is Lucrezia Borgia, 22 years old, daughter of the notorious Pope Alexander VI. The gold-draped halls shimmer, the banquet tables overflow, yet every guest knows this union has little to do with love. It is strategy, pure and ruthless. And before dawn breaks, the night's splendor will twist into something grotesque, a spectacle of humiliation disguised as celebration. Her bridal chamber will become a public theater, her body reduced to evidence, her privacy transformed into diplomacy. This is the tale of how a woman's most private moment was turned into a political weapon, and how she learned to forge her own from that very shame. To grasp the cruelty of what happened that night, you must first step into the treacherous labyrinth that was Renaissance Italy. Forget notions of chivalry. This was a realm of daggers hidden beneath silk, where the powerful city-states of Venice, Milan, and Naples played a ceaseless and bloody game for supremacy. At the center of it all sat the papacy, ruled by the Borgias, a family whose name had become synonymous with ambition, deceit, and poison. Lucrezia's father, Pope Alexander VI, and her brother, the ruthless Cesare Borgia, were masters of manipulation. To them, Lucrezia was not a daughter, but a pawn married off to secure alliances, then abandoned when her usefulness expired. She was no stranger to this brutal commerce. Her first marriage, to Giovanni Sforza, ended in disgrace, annulled on the false grounds of his impotence. A public humiliation meant to destroy him and free her for a more valuable match. Her second husband, Alfonso of Aragon, the one she is said to have truly loved, met a bloodier fate. Stabbed and strangled on the Vatican steps, in an assassination widely attributed to her own brother. By 1502, Lucrezia was not the naive bride her portrait suggested. She was a survivor twice over, widowed, discarded, and tainted by the intrigues of her own kin. Her third union was with Alfonso d'Este, heir to the powerful Duchy of Ferrara, a family proud, ancient, and deeply wary of the Borgias' notorious reputation. They demanded certainty before binding their name to hers. They knew too well what had happened to the men who came before, and so they made a demand as grotesque as it was logical in their world of ruthless politics. The marriage must be consummated, publicly, with witnesses. No rumor of impotence, no whisper of fraud would be allowed to threaten this alliance. The act itself had to be verified, officially, beyond question. When the feasting ended, when the dancers had spun their final steps and the poets had fallen silent, the newlyweds were led not to a private bridal suite, but to a stage. Curtains were drawn back just enough for papal clerics and Ferrari's envoys to observe. Faces half-turned in false modesty, eyes sharp as daggers, they watched, recording each movement like witnesses to a legal contract. In that candlelit chamber, Lucrezia, who had long been treated as a political bargaining chip, was stripped of all pretense and reduced to her most basic purpose: proof of fertility, confirmation of potency. What took place was remembered not as a night of intimacy but as ceremony, repeated not once but twice, and then a third time, to erase all doubt. By morning, whispers had swept across Italy. Ferrara had its assurance, and the Borgia daughter had fulfilled her role. Grotesque? Yes. Political theater? Absolutely. Yet, in that macabre display, Lucrezia began to understand something vital. Humiliation could be transmuted into strength, and disgrace could become a form of control. When she entered Ferrara, she was not the trembling bride her new in-laws expected. She had endured the unendurable and emerged sharpened by it. What was meant to reduce her had, paradoxically, armed her. Now she carried the indisputable proof of her fertility and her marriage's legitimacy. A weapon she would wield with precision in Ferrara's court. No longer just the Pope's scandalous daughter, she was the duchess whose very body had sealed an alliance between empires, and she made sure no one forgot it. Rather than retreat from gossip, Lucrezia embraced her visibility. She transformed herself into the embodiment of grace and power. Her poise, her wit, her effortless charm soon captivated the Ferrarese elite. She hosted salons where philosophers debated Plato and poets performed verses, crafting a space where she dictated the script. Guests arrived expecting scandal and left bewitched by intellect and elegance. The whispers changed tone. Perhaps she was not only Borgia corruption, perhaps she carried Ferrara's refinement too. Lucrezia mastered the art of reinvention. She turned culture into her battlefield, patronage into armor. She commissioned artists, funded convents, and wrapped her name in piety and sophistication. In a world where her body had once been public record, she built a new kind of theater, one where she held the pen, not the spotlight. And when her husband Alfonso went off to war, it was Lucrezia who governed Ferrara, issuing decrees and securing the duchy's stability. The people would come to call her the Good Duchess, a title she earned not through birthright, but through shrewdness and endurance. Historians still argue, did she resent the fate imposed upon her, or did she seize it as an opportunity to command her own destiny? Was she merely surviving, or had she been plotting her rise from the very first night? Her letters offer little clarity. They are careful, measured, elusive, but the result speaks for itself. The young woman once paraded as an object of ridicule transformed her shame into influence. She turned degradation into dominion, remaking herself from pawn to power, from humiliated bride to sovereign duchess. The bed that was meant to cage her became, in time, the cornerstone of her throne.